What's up, y'all? This message is for the people that just started our SHT Real Foodie Masterclass. And we also think it would be beneficial and applicable for anyone starting on their holistic health journey, especially if it's a new nutrition program, which, hopefully it's a real food-based program or something like what we're doing, or hopefully it's with us, who knows? This is a plug for starting slow, starting methodical, because we want to cultivate habits and routines that we can stick to for a lifetime. I mean, that is the ultimate goal of anything that we do health related, is to do something in a way that facilitates lifelong implementation. Okay, and that's why we put the progression together, is because we start slow and easy and we start to move towards a little bit more challenging protocols and phases and things. So we want to get out of the mindset that we have to do something drastic or neurotic to fix things. I think a lot of people come into something like this, and I get it, like you finally made the decision and you're excited to do something, and you're like, all right, now I'm all in. I'm just gonna freaking overhaul everything. And what we find is that when people have that mentality, they can force themselves to do some stuff for a short period of time, but more than likely, more often than not, they end up relapsing and never cultivating the habits that we want them to cultivate. So that's why we put a progression together. That's why we have things spread out over 8 weeks. Okay, so you don't need to do anything to kickstart your process. You don't need to do anything drastic, because if you do, you're going to run the risk of burning out and not cultivating the habits that we want, or even worse, cultivating the wrong habits. Specifically habits of being too drastic and being too neurotic about things. And you also run the risk of developing some pretty significant symptoms and kind of hurting yourself. All right, so understand what we're doing with our basic protocols. These are foundations that we are going to implement for a lifetime. And some of this means we're overcoming or undoing years, if not decades, of brainwashing. So first of all, real food is nutrient density at its best. Okay, so we had some questions about supplementation. People come into this, they're ready with the food, and they're like, okay, what supplements do I need to take? And we'd say, make your focus real food first, because real food nutrient density is above and beyond anything that you're going to get from supplements. Supplements can be used strategically to fill in some gaps, but they are not the end-all be-all. The primary focus has to be real food. And then within the context of real food, we can start to plug some of those gaps, but it only makes sense once you've got through that initial adaptation period to begin supplementing. Okay, real food is going to replenish years of nutritional deficiencies and toxicities that we've built up, again, over years or maybe even decades. Okay, so if you go into something like, we had this question, like, should I go vegan for a month or something and then start to do this program? Well, it's really sad and tragic that a lot of us think that animal meats and fats are somehow bad or damaging. And even after we've gone through this program in these initial meetings, or maybe heard it somewhere else or read it somewhere else, we still have this idea that when you eat animal meats and fats, that even though we know it's good for us, because of that background brainwashing, we think that there's something that needs to be done or cleaned up before that. And what we're trying to tell you is that there is nothing that is more nutrient dense and better for you than animal meats, healthy fats, nutrient dense vegetables, the way that we talked about it. And so going vegan, you miss that opportunity, or going plant-based, you miss the opportunity to replenish the nutrients that your body is so badly needing and asking for. All right, so no, you do not need to go clean and detox or something like that, because, by the way, giving your body these animal meats and healthy fats and nutrient dense vegetables and a little bit of greens and full fat dairy and all the things that we have talked about, it's giving your body the nutrients that it needs to detoxify. So another question we got is, don't I need to detox myself before starting a program like this? And we say no, because first of all, detoxification is not something that you just decide to do and then it starts to happen. Detoxification is trying to happen on a moment-to-moment basis all the time inside your body. And so when we start to eat real food, including animal meats and fats, we're giving the body the nutrients that it needs to detoxify and facilitate the detox pathways. Because in order to detoxify, your body has to bind toxins to specific nutrients. And if you're going something that's very void of nutrients, like something plant-based, you may not be giving your body what it needs to detoxify properly. So eating real food in and of itself is extremely detoxifying, and that's something that's happening all the time, every day. We want to slowly build up our resilience and slowly build the machinery inside of our bodies to facilitate the things that we're going to learn later in the progression. Okay, so Some of us may get ahead of ourselves and read a little bit further into the guide beyond what we covered in our meeting, and where we talk about self-sufficiency and low carb and cleanse and autoimmune and self-testing protocols and strategic fasting. And we say we got plenty of time to mess with that stuff down the road. What we're trying to do right now is cultivate the habits, cultivate the routines, and build the mitochondrial machinery inside our body that will allow us to experiment with those things in the future, okay? We will experiment with fasting, but someone asked, for some reason, because fasting is such a hot topic now, they jumped onto this fast and they're doing like a 3 to 5 day water fast. And I tried to tell this person, like, no, look, listen, just eat real food. Make your focus real food. Make your focus eating real food the way that we talked about eating real food. And that is going to serve you for a lifetime. There's plenty of time to experiment with fasting after we've gotten nutritionally sufficient, after we've removed the toxins, and after we've built the machinery that will allow us to do that down the road, okay? Now, again, I just want to reiterate, we want to get out of the mindset that we have to be all in and we have to do something drastic and neurotic. We say it all the time. What we're doing doesn't have to be complicated. It's very simple. You just need to eat real food following our basic rules. So let's reiterate what those basic rules are for the first 2 weeks. For the first 2 weeks, our focus is just eating 100% real food, making sure that when we gravitate towards those things that would be considered no-nos, at least they're made with the right ingredients. So chips and cookies and crackers and ice creams and things like that. And then 100% real food, things made with the right ingredients, 3 meals a day, no snacking in between meals, no carbs in the morning, a little bit of carbs at night. That's the formula for success for a lifetime, okay? 100% real food, no carbs in the morning, no snacking between meals, a little bit of carbs at night, ideally from the right real food sources. And then, most people are going to start to feel amazing within a few days, and then by the time we get together at the next meeting, we're going to learn some new concepts. If you start to naturally gravitate towards 2 meals, or maybe you have 3 meals and 2 are looking like meals and one of them is looking like a snack, that's perfectly fine. If you need to snack because you feel like you're having low blood sugar symptoms, that's perfectly fine too. If you hear some of the veterans talking about what they do, understand the veterans have been doing this for years. I've been doing this for 6, 7, 8 years, depending on how far back you kind of track that. So what I'm doing is probably not what you need to be doing right now, although you may gravitate towards that at some point in the future. All right, so if you hear some of us talking about some crazy ideas and concepts that we're messing with, just focus on what's in front of you and what we talk about at the meetings. And then finally, I just want to reiterate what we have going on in the journal, because there was a little bit of confusion in there. So remember, we have our moderation guidelines. We have the category with this big smiley face that is no moderation needed at all. And so all those foods like the animal meats, healthy fats, nutrient-dense vegetables, what else was in there? Maybe some of the full-fat dairy, because they are so nutrient-dense and low in carbohydrates, those things tend to auto-regulate your appetite, all right? So we say no moderation because the moderation happens by itself, all right? Now, also, big smiley face is going to be some things that we do need to moderate, but they're still 100% fresh real food, or acceptable, on a daily basis. And that would be our carbohydrate sources, like our safe starches and our fruits and our sweets, maybe some low sugar dark chocolate. You could have 1 drink a day, handful of nuts. So those would still give you a smiley face for the day. Now, once we start to venture into that moderated a lot category, which is the straight face, that's when we definitely want to log those days, because we want to see how many of those days we're having. And those days are not bad days. A bad day is a frowny face where you go out and eat Little Caesars, or you have some waffles or some BS like that. But when we're doing things in that moderated a lot category, we just want to be aware of how many times we're doing that, and then log that on not just our daily food journal, but on our big calendar, so that we can see how many greens or how many smiley faces we have over time, how many straight faces and how many frowny faces. Okay, if that's still unclear, make sure to ask your group leader or post a question in the group, or you can message us or call us or email us, or whatever makes sense for you, okay? Now, in the journal itself, some of the things that you'll see in there we haven't covered yet, we will cover when we get to the lifestyle progression. But the daily questions are self-explanatory. You sit down, I would block out 10 to 15 minutes of personal quiet time somewhere that feels really comfortable and nice to you, and then just sit down and do a little journaling. Ask the questions, write down the answers, let it be intuitive. And this is being really beneficial at a unconscious level. Okay, you're going to notice your days just kind of flow a little bit easier and effortlessly, and feel just a little bit better. If you have a meditation or a prayer practice or devotion or something like that, after you ask those questions, you can go into your meditation or prayer devotion. And then we have some reflection questions for the evening before you go to sleep. On the journal, some of the concepts and check boxes and goals and things we haven't covered yet, but we will cover in the future, but they are also somewhat self-explanatory. But what we're focusing on for the next 2 weeks is what is in that little middle section, which is the food section. If you have a personal daily food goal, you can write that down. If you have, or when you eat food, we want to put a time and we want to put as much detail as we can. And you can even list out in that post column how it makes you feel, or some emotions around it or something along those lines. We highly recommend that you take a picture of all the food that you eat, because pictures for some reason help people be a little bit more diligent. Even if you're not sharing that on social media, we just see that to be really beneficial. And then below that, if you have a day where you eat, according to our ideal dates meals and how we structure our daily eating, and you're 100% fresh real food based on those 2 smiley face categories, you can give yourself a big smiley face. And if you have anything in that moderated a lot category, that's one of your moderated a lot days, and you would circle that or exit or however you want to do it. And then if you have a day where you completely fall off, that would be a frowny face day. Hopefully we're not having any of those. And then we just have little reminders for balance. We have some check boxes for fasting, but we're going to cover fasting a little bit later in the progression. And then some goals for hydration and some reflection for the rest of the day, or some sleep goals and reflection for the rest of the day. Again, if we haven't covered it yet and it doesn't make sense to you, don't even worry about it. Just focus on that food piece. We just didn't see it very conducive to make separate journals for every phase and every progression that we have. This is something that we feel like we can use for the entire year, okay? And I think that's about it. All right, be easy on yourself, have fun with it, celebrate in the fact that you have found the best of real food. We have a lifetime to experiment with this stuff, and we are here to support you for a lifetime. So take it easy, start small, cultivate foundational habits. Don't get too neurotic, don't be too drastic, don't think that you have to overhaul everything and detoxify and fast and all this stuff, other stuff right out the gates. Just start with the basic simple protocols that we teach, and we promise you we're going to get you to where you want to go over time, okay? All right, I think that's all I got. Yeah. All right, we'll see y'all soon.